County Council is now in session. The Honorable Chad Williams will give the invocation pledge of allegiance.
Please rise with me if you care to. God, thank you for the many blessings you've given York County, including this abundance of rain. Please be with us as we try to figure out the best way to use them, and also help us remember the reason for the season. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Michael, we don't have any oath of office, do we? Okay. So we have appearances, Hospitality Tax Committee member to address council. I think it's Mark Van Sickle. Oh, there you are.
We had submitted to you for your review revisions to the marketing grant application. That was the primary reason for coming tonight. I'll give you an update as well on revisions that we're making to the capital grant application as well. So I didn't know if you had any questions on, without going through this page by page.
Yeah, under appearances, we just listen to whatever you want to present.
Most of the information in the application was just a reorganization. There is some additional accountability that we are writing in there as well. They also need to come up with more financial impact analysis and working with the CVB. That'll be a carryover as well on the capital application that we'll be submitting hopefully after we meet this month during our,
Okay.
and we're gonna have an executive session meeting, closed door. Talk about this and some other things.
Okay.
Trying to think. We're changing the scoring section to help give a kind of discretionary bonus, if you will, in terms of point evaluation. If they show proof of partnership with food vendors that are within the unincorporated portions of the county, because that's the people that are going to actually generate this, so they should help get the benefit of paying the tax, or collecting the tax, I should say. They're not paying it. I guess they technically are. And then, so there's some revisions to that score sheet, and we'll get that back to you for final consideration. So that would be the only thing I think that I would say would be potentially changing from what
Okay.
was submitted. Is there any questions that you guys have?
If you do, just submit them to Mark or Watts, and we, like I said, we just listen to you. under
Okay,
appearance.
I just knew it was up for consideration later in the meeting, so I wanted to answer anything I could
Okay.
now, if that's helpful. I guess switching gears to the capital projects application. Our recommendation at this point, we'll be submitting, like I said, after we meet and kind of finalize that in a couple of weeks for you guys to look at. But our recommendation is, regardless of the status of the revisions to the application, that no decisions be made based on projects that we know are forthcoming. That you guys are probably even more aware of different things than we are, and to not allocate the limited pool of money to one project without giving some time to consider some things that are coming down the pipeline. Obviously, there's a finite fund at this point, and it's going to take a long time to replenish that. So that's our recommendation.
Would that
in
be
those regards?
in perpetuity, or do you have a?
No, if we're July or maybe even after July. You know, certainly there's some things as we're revising the application that we would want things that are currently being considered as well to need to comply with, as you know, if we're going to make other people that are forthcoming meet these requirements. These guys will, you know, the applications that are on file now will need to come in line with that as well.
I'm not sure if one of the components is to make sure that they're spread throughout the county, but I think it would be, it would certainly be something that I think is important, is that we ensure that it's, that the projects that are recommended are something that the entire county is. I like the fact that you guys are beefing up the component of ensuring that the unincorporated area is given some deferential treatment, given the origination of the funds, but,
Yeah,
if there's any
and
thought
even
to-
even penalizing projects that come across, whether they're a marketing project or a capital improvements project, if they're not located in the unincorporated areas.
good to me.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Bill, what we may want to do, if there's an action item, instead of putting them under appearances, just have them, you know, once it's introduced, have them listed on the action agenda item. Because with appearances, you know, it kind of gets confusing to council and citizens. Okay. Thanks, Mark.
I'm not
Appreciate it. Yes, you are. You just don't want to admit it. Next person is the 2-minute public forum. Is that Alicia? Did I say it correctly? One person signed up, and it's,
I'm sorry, we're the first item actually on the public hearing.
oh, okay. I got you.
We'll take that off, thank you.
Yes, sir. And speaking of that, public hearing, conduct a public hearing and consider adopting a resolution approving the issuance of not to exceed $72 million of tax-exempt bonds to be issued by the Public Finance Authority to finance and refinance certain costs of various projects on behalf of the Foundation for Affordable Housing. Anybody want to speak against? I was just throwing you a curve.
I don't think I've seen
I like to
anybody
have some
sit down
fun.
quicker than that.
Anybody wants to speak in favor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I'm Stephen Cox. I'm a lawyer over in Rock Hill, and I'm here this evening with a representative of the Foundation for Affordable Housing, Ms. Aisha Cherko. We're here to ask the council's favorable consideration and approval of a resolution which the chairman just read about, approving up to $72 million in tax-exempt bonds. I always start these hearings the same way. We are not asking the county for any money. We are not asking the county for any financial commitment or obligation of any kind. We're not asking any political body for any financial commitment or obligation of any kind. This is what's called a conduit financing arrangement. A state agency issues bonds. Private investors put up all the money to buy those bonds, and that private investment money is then lent to borrowers, such as my client in this case, to undertake certain projects. The benefit of that arrangement is because it's a state agency issuing the bonds to a nonprofit corporation like my client, they are tax exempt. But one of the requirements for one of those tax exempt conduit financings, it's a requirement of both the Internal Revenue Code for federal law and of state law, is that the local political body where the project is located, in this case the York County Council, has to have a public hearing to consider and approve the resolution. By doing that, you're not agreeing to lend money or guarantee money of any kind, but the federal and state governments just want to make sure that before they go issuing tax-exempt bonds, they have a hearing in the municipality or county where this is going to happen so that anyone can register any objections. Y'all are familiar, I'm sure you've had hearings like this before with JEDA, the South Carolina Jobs and Economic Development Authority. These kind of financings are common for charter schools, affordable housing projects, industrial development. Y'all have probably had some of these hearings before in the recent past. That's what this is. It's an affordable housing project. The difference here is that these bonds are being issued by the Wisconsin Public Finance Authority, and y'all may be wondering, why are we asking to consider something issued by the Wisconsin Public Finance Authority? And again, it's just a matter of federal and state law. Regardless of which state is issuing these bonds, the local political body has to consider and approve the resolution that allows us to seek the financing. Again, the financing will be entirely with private funds, and York County will have no obligation or commitment in connection with those. So let me tell you briefly about the project, and Ms. Cherko knows a lot more about the actual project than I do, so she's happy to answer any questions. This concerns a 68-unit multifamily apartment complex in Rock Hill off HECKLE Boulevard near Clinton Junior College called Marketplace Apartments. It's an affordable housing facility. It provides affordable housing for working families who can't quite afford full market rents, which are becoming ever more expensive in our area, but who can afford to pay something, and then there's some rent subsidies that go on. This project has actually been around for a while, I think a couple of decades.
Yes, it was built in the 70s.
But we're ready to renovate it some. And so what we're doing here with this issuance of this project is we're seeking funds, private funds issued through Wisconsin bonds, to renovate this facility in Rock Hill and a number of other facilities in other places in the Carolinas. You see those places listed in your proposed resolution. We're seeking up to $10 million of the $72 million will be used to renovate this existing 68-unit facility in Rock Hill. So we're not asking to build new affordable housing with these funds. We're asking to renovate and refurbish existing affordable housing in Rock Hill for that purpose. So with all that in mind, we would certainly entertain any questions. Ms. Cherko can answer any questions. We would ask the council's favorable consideration and adoption of the resolution. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Any questions for Mr.?
I just, Mr. Kendry answered most of my questions, but I didn't think about it. In my day job, I sell municipal bonds and stuff as part of my job.
Right.
These being issued under Wisconsin authority, does that affect their taxable ability in South Carolina, or are they considered a South Carolina bond just issued under?
They'll be considered a tax-exempt bond that gets federal tax exemption, and of course, South Carolina piggybacks off of that federal tax exemption for South Carolina income tax purposes.
Thank you.
Mr. Henderson?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I just want to check and find out, the ones in Rock Hill that you're talking about, renovation.
Yes, sir.
Is this people that are currently, in other words, these are current occupants that are living there that you're renovating, or is just renovation of, that are empty buildings that, what is it?
No, we're currently almost 100% occupied, so when indeed this renovation goes into effect, we would have to do the renovations while the residents are still living there. Of course, we would accommodate them on a daily basis to make sure that they're not inconvenienced in any way. So it is a possibility. It's a very probable way of doing it. I've done it in many different locations before, so we just make sure that we do our work during normal working hours, and then wherever they need to be, we accommodate them, give them another place to stay. We give them all the amenities that they would normally have. So we would inconvenience them a little bit, but not enough to really put them out of place.
And would this have any connection at all to the refugee resettlement program, as far as from the federal government, as far as any of the Middle Easterners?
Not in these
No.
apartments, no, sir.
None? Okay, good enough.
Any other questions? Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else want to speak in favor? We have a motion to close.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Do we have a new motion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
I'd
sir.
like the record to show that I did not vote on that just because I do have the potential to potentially sell some of those bonds at some point. And so just to avoid any potential of conflict, I abstained from that vote.
Okay. You're going to let the record show that, right? So need a motion?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, council to conduct a public hearing and consider third reading of an ordinance to amend the existing agreement governing the York-Chester Industrial Park to add properties within the geographical boundaries of York County to the multi-county park, to correct and update company names and property owners associated with certain parcels included in the park, to correct and update tax map numbers associated with certain parcels included in the park, to remove properties located within the geographical boundaries of York County that do not qualify for inclusion in the multi-county park, and to provide a public hearing and other matters related thereto. Anybody here want to speak against? Anybody in favor?
Move to close.
Got a second? Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Need a new motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item.
Move to defer.
There you go. But let me read it first, though. Council to consider second reading of an ordinance to establish and create a special tax district to be known as the Lake Wiley Parks and Recreation District in York County, South Carolina, to define its areas and boundaries, to define the nature of the services to be rendered therein, to fix the maximum level of taxes which may be levied to provide for the operation and maintenance of Lake Wiley Parks and Recreation District, and to provide for other matters related thereto. Now,
Defer.
we had a second?
Second.
Second, discussion? Yes, sir, Mr. Henderson.
Yes, I just want to mention that this, just want to reiterate, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding, there's just more, some cobwebs to work out in order to get all this completed, correct?
Correct. Yeah, Andy, yes, sir, Mr. Shanahan.
I guess I would request, staff would request that this one before the Health Environmental Protection Committee to shake out the cobwebs. As you put it, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Good enough.
So, no, we'll get it to them. Chad, that's your committee, right?
I don't know.
I was told
Like I said earlier.
Yay.
Okay, so we got a motion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, Jim Britton with Cumming. Provide council with a construction update.
Mr. Chair, council members, I'm pleased to be here tonight to present the fourth quarter building program update. If you would, refer to tab section 1, and we'll begin with the courthouse renovation. The project continues favorably. We are very close to substantial completion. We actually had a meeting today with the fire marshal to establish our substantial completion inspection. Just for definition, substantial completion is a legal term. It means that the building can be used for its intended purposes, but it does not mean it's a final complete. It's not finally complete. If it's the 19th or 20th, then what we will do is we can start the FF&E package, move in the furniture, the fixtures, the equipment, AV stuff. Some of the stuff you don't want to move in until you have limited access to the building, otherwise some of the stuff walks away. So with that in mind, it is anticipated that the final completion will be reached January the 20th, and in coordinating with the clerk of court, he anticipates having the building operational, scheduling court 1st of February.
Is that a change from what's been thought about?
No, we are 2 weeks behind we were initially discussing December the 6th. We're about 2 weeks behind the finish, and that's
Before the furniture's moved around?
correct.
So you say final completion January 20th or December
Yeah.
20th?
Final completion January.
Okay. So there's 20th.
Substantial completion December,
December 20th.
which is when we can start moving.
Yeah, I understand. It's the same date. I just want to make sure I had the right month.
Great. Any questions other than that? I've got several photos. It's kind of hard to see on this shot, but this is from the upstairs looking down. That's a new floor it's a wood floor, new floor. We're also replacing the wainscoting around the perimeter. This is the first floor court. Kind of speaks for itself. It's turned out really well.
Which court will that be, do you know? Don't know, never mind.
Equity court.
Okay.
And this is a shot of some wainscoting. If you've been in it before, you recognize the marble. This is new. Part of this is new marble. Matches really well. And then this is just a shot of some of the. I will bring this to your attention. These photos are about a week old, and a lot happens at this phase of the project. But I wanted to bring your attention to the woodworking and casing. And this is an aerial photograph. You've been by. We recently had the landscaping installed. The temporary construction fence has been removed. The project is being watered. The landscaping is being watered. You'll notice up here, this has not been, at the time this photo was taken, the sod was not installed. So at that time, we'd still had a couple retaining walls to pour right here, and you can't see, but right there to keep the to hold the soil back.
I have a quick question I asked David today, and he probably hasn't had a chance to ask, and you probably, I'll be surprised if you know it all.
I know it.
That photo on the front, what was the old front courthouse, on South Congress Street there. On each side of those columns at the steps there were 2 lamp posts. Are
They're
those going back
Yes,
on, or?
we are rewiring those lamps. And actually, I was surprised that they weren't up today when I rode by. But yes, that's part of the electrical package. Those things are, those copper lamps, they're wonderful lamps. So I knew that answer. We are rewiring them, and they will be installed,
All right, thank you.
reinstalled.
Jim,
We weren't, we are now because you knew that answer, right?
you said that you were putting sod, but it hadn't been installed yet?
Yeah, the sod, if you'll notice, the sod, we re-sodded we installed sod
When the picture was taken.
with the irrigation. And the sod had not been, we held off on the sod there because if you put it down and then to pull it back up to put the,
So you're gonna put it down
correct,
as soon as in
correct.
the winter?
Correct.
What kind of sod is it?
It's fescue. Any other I think I've got one more. And this is one from the, I think is that Jefferson or is that Liberty?
That's Liberty.
Liberty. So, landscaping here. This is a new access point, was reestablished access point, but a secure staff access point. Have the court crier balcony has been reinstalled. Hopefully they'll use it. It's just a really neat feature.
At least they won't fall out on the sidewalk when they use it.
So on the side buildings with, is that membrane roofs?
Yes,
Flat roofs?
these are built-up roofs, yes, sir.
When we get closer to the final day, we will make sure that y'all are invited to take a walk through it.
And everybody's invited Saturday for the historical marker dedication.
For the marker,
That's what I said,
yes, sir.
historical marker
I'll
dedication.
be at each.
That historical marker, by the way, is, if you're talking about the Masonic marker, is that what we're talking about? Or are you talking about it's located right there.
No, this,
We're talking about the bronze plaque?
yeah.
Our next project is, this will be the last month I report on the East York SPEC building. The project is now complete, and we had some issues with some grading, and we had some negotiations with the contractor to get those, the project complete. We got them to see it our way. So all the work has been complete, the contract has been fulfilled, but because the project is not technically finished because it's a spec building, the interior has not been upfit, we'll not be able to obtain what they call a notice of termination until someone takes the building to the finish line. But that is something that can be transferred. But it's the only issue is that we will have to continue monitoring the SWPP, the erosion and silt fence and stuff like that.
When we through paying your bills. You through sending us bills, right?
I hope.
Bill, you may not know the answer to this, but is this the first spec building we built? Because there's nobody going into it right now, correct?
No, he's had a couple of bites, but I don't believe we've had.
Is this the first one that we completed it before? I mean, the others pretty much, am I thinking wrong, or did
The one since I've been here, they've sold pretty quickly.
before it was even finished, right? Or am I-
Yes, sir.
It was right beside 77.
Yeah, right.
I've had quite a bit of conversation with Mr. Swenson. I know he's got a lot of interest in the project.
Children's Club.
Okay, thanks.
Our next project is Mall's Justice expansion. I'm happy to report that we will be bidding. This is one of our bond projects. Happy to report that our first bid will go out on this project. We've already advertised it. We are actually conducting the pre-bid meeting tomorrow. We're calling it a Phase 1 early site / parking deck. So those are two things. If you'll recall, this is a very critical, complex is not a tough enough term. The renovation, the phasing of this project. When you start to look at, for example, the phasing, keeping the integrity of the courts.
The building secured.
Well, just not that, but on the sheriff's side, you got a lot of evidence that, we're tying into that evidence room,
Oh, yeah.
keeping the integrity of that. So there's a lot of moving parts there. And we'll be starting on the sheriff's side while the parking deck is going up. So that's going to bid We're shooting for December 20th with a fallback date of the 5th, and anticipate bringing it to council for recommendations in January. Phase 2 documents are in design development. You're going to hear me talk about design development quite a bit tonight. Majority of the projects, they start at the same time and they're moving forward at the same time. And we've got to develop some separation between them on bid dates. And we're not going to, it's kind of like picking your favorite children. Whichever one's finished first is one that's going to go to market first. But we want about a week and a half, 2 weeks separation between bidders so we do not saturate the market, so we can, make sure we have good coverage on subs. And that's the most important part right now. You've got a lot of GCs and brokers, but the sub market is one that's saturated. So we want to.
So you're gonna be at phase 1 and then phase 2?
Phase 2 will be further, probably second quarter. We need to have enough time to actually get that parking deck in before we start taking away parking. And there will be some overlap.
Is this project on time?
We're slightly behind on this, but we're ahead of schedule with bidding, getting movement. So the design, the overall construction documents are a little bit behind, but with the release of the early site and the parking deck, it actually gives us some lag in there that we're going to take advantage of too. We've got a few issues that we're working out, but I feel good with the schedule overall.
So with the construction industry, are we in pretty decent shape with labor and materials?
Can I answer that question when I conclude this, because Section 3 kind of addresses that? Our next project is Family Court. Right now, unfortunately, I have mostly just renderings. It won't be long before I'm bringing you actual construction photos, and believe it or not, it won't be long before we have final. But again, this project is design development, just like the others, and you'll hear me say it again a couple more times. We are in the process of conducting a milestone estimate. We do 3 estimates, really 4 estimates when we're involved in a project. Milestone estimates, that's schematic design, design development, construction documents. And so we do not have that to report to you today, but I will be including in the next report for next month. We are shooting for a phase 1 site package similar to what we were doing at Moss Justice. It will be a little bit smaller project because it'll be mostly timbering and some mass grading, hopefully some storm sewer and utilities as well. That should be ready in March. The Clover, I'll just stay right here. I don't have any photos for this next one, but the Clover and Fort Mill Magistrate projects, the county has purchased the Fort Mill project, so the design, we're packaging those two together, so we couldn't start on design until we finalize that purchase. So those two will be running together. We're actually going to be bidding them together because of scale will help us get better numbers, even though they're 2 different locations, they're similar projects, and just the overall scale will help.
While you're still in this picture, did we shift the columns to the side, or have they always been like that?
You've got a traditional design. That's been always that way, yes, sir.
Yeah, but I'm talking about it's heavier on that side. I didn't remember that.
What, was it central? I thought it was central.
This is an older elevation.
Oh, okay.
This is not,
All right.
So the one.
it is symmetrical.
Okay.
Yeah, I
That
kind
answers
of
your
had the
question.
same
Good,
question.
yeah,
Chad did.
unless we had the expansion plans on the side, but I didn't remember.
Correct.
That was
It's
a bunch of changes. Okay,
fairly
good.
symmetrical, but the front elevation is.
I just didn't want, I assumed that you knew what was going on, but I didn't want to be groundbreaking and then ask.
Thank you. So we've kicked off and started design on the magistrate projects. They're underway, and because of the size of them, we should be able to bring those to market sooner rather than later. We're, just like the other projects, we'll be bringing a report and a presentation to council in January. This is the admin building. Design development is complete. Again, you've heard that. We're in the process of design development milestone estimate. We are moving into CD documents, construction documents, and this project will probably be the next project that comes to market. We're shooting for probably finishing CDs in March and going to bid in April, receiving bids in April.
Construction start.
Once we get, so we're trying to line these things so we can get on the agenda. We're trying to bid them about a week and a half prior to a board meeting, a council meeting, so we can get on the agenda, get approval. Then we've got a 10-day protest period once we get an intent to award based off of our action item here, and then they have contractually 2 weeks to get started. So there's a little bit of lag, but generally what happens once they get the notice, notice to proceed, they get the contracts, bonds together, start buying the project out, you know, executing contracts with their subcontractors and scheduling the work out. So it's a 2-3 week traction process before we start really seeing some meaningful work on the site.
And you and I talked before the meeting, but for the benefit of the other council members, you did say the negatives of that site, we can overcome them.
Yeah, and there are certain negatives, and we've discussed those, went through those during the, I guess, maybe a year ago. It's been quite a while when we presented those options. There are some issues associated with the contamination that we knew were there. The key is for us to stay above the groundwater level, because if you get below that groundwater level, then you get into where you're having to treat the water as a hazardous material, which we don't want to do. So
Rick's still trying to move it.
No, I kind of gave up on that, but I just want to make sure we don't make a mistake for the taxpayer any more than we're going to have to bite.
Our next project is Public Works, and we're calling this the Public Works, the buildings or support facilities. We've separated two components of the Public Works: recycling building and then the support facilities. So the design development is not finished, but should be wrapping it up really this week or next week, and we'll be running our milestone estimate in the month of December. We're slightly behind schedule on the design here, and that's attributed to the final location of the recycling center. And I just told you that we've separated them, but some of the space inside the office area, the admin area of that building, could have been moved, might have been moved, so we didn't want to finalize that design until we had a final and firm answer.
Are you talking about, is that the issue that's coming up tonight with the HDR that we're approving? Have we decided on the location? I know previously there was some discussion. It's not, where is that?
So the final location is where we started with, and it's actually
Back on our own property?
correct.
Yes,
correct,
ma'am.
Correct. Which, well, we'll go into that now. The recycling center, actually, this is a rendering that was produced by HDR, the architects and engineers that designed this project for you previously, I think in 2012, 2013. Now, what we're going to do is we're taking that design, and we're updating it, running through some codes have changed, so we've got to go through the design again and make sure that they're all recent codes. There's not a whole lot of changes, but you still have to do it, and before we can submit to the AHJs, the local municipalities, to get approval. We're in that process, and there's potential of some minor massaging of the design, but overall, it's going to be very similar to what that design was. We should be able to bring this to market within probably 3 to 4 months. So this would be, you're going to see a lot of stuff in the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter with, you'll probably see me quite a lot more than you have here recently.
Yay.
I apologize for Mr. Williams.
No apology necessary. If you look at tab section 2 is a schedule. This is an updated schedule. The red line represents today. So you can kind of see where we are in the overall design and construction process. Mr. Chair, if you, to answer your questions you posed earlier, we do quarterly and monthly updates on not just the global market, state market, but we do a very specific market analysis for the Rock Hill, Charlotte area. And I don't have graphics of it, but it is included in your report. There's a monthly summary, and then it goes into some of the key factors of the indexes. We have a few, and this is very critical to when you use this when we are starting to go through design. Sometimes a load-bearing masonry project facility is more cost-effective. Sometimes a structural steel project is more cost-effective. Sometimes a precast structure is. So these are the things that we kind of weigh There's different ways to build that mousetrap, and those indexes are very critical for us, not only budgeting, but going through the process. The bad thing is almost all of them are pressure up. And we're starting to see some pressure on
Labor?
on different materials. Those materials, believe it or not, has been fairly flat over the last year or so. We're starting to see some increases. Steel we're projecting it to be about an 8% increase, whereas Portland cement, which is a main product in concrete, is going down. It's also a main product in CMU, concrete masonry units, a concrete block. So this is a very interesting reading. I know if you lay in bed, don't have anything to do, it's fun to read. But with that, that concludes my report. If there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer them.
So cutting to the chase on that, though, we're sitting okay right now, just
We've
quicker
got
we
the only-
build, the better.
Yes, we're okay on all projects right now, with the exception of the family court project, the Moss Justice project, which is, when we received our design development estimate, we've got some cost creeps. We're addressing them now, but we will be refreshing that estimate with some changes. Specifically, we're addressing some items that are non-essential, and some things such as circulation space widths, reducing some of those. Square foot of hall is no different than a square foot of office. So, and some of these things, we're not limiting it, but these are things that are over program. Oftentimes, we will identify them and bid them as add alternates, so if we can't afford them but it's critical that we bring to you on bid day or at a recommendation a project that's affordable and awardable, and so we don't want to go back and do value engineering after the fact. That answer?
You
Yes, sir.
made comment about the reading. I was actually impressed. I don't remember seeing before all the analysis you do on concrete and steel and all that in another report, and I was impressed to see that y'all
It's critical.
go through all of that and look at all
Yeah.
that.
Otherwise, you're flying by your pants, and that's not good.
Otherwise, you're reacting instead of
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next item, council to consider the proposed hospitality tax revised 2017 marketing and advertising grant application.
Move to approve.
Second,
Discussion.
I thought they did a good job with everything I saw and all the recommendations.
Anyone else? Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, council to consider approval and execution of the right of entry agreement between Ross Dress for Less and York County to survey property and conduct geotechnical work for a 1.5 million gallon water elevated storage tank.
Move to approve.
Discussion. Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, council to consider approval of an engineering contract in a not-to-exceed amount of $391,625 with HDR Engineering of the Carolinas for services related to the design, bidding, construction, and startup of the Materials Recovery and Recycling Center.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, consider approval of an agreement with York Electric Co-op for purposes of York County receiving contributions under the Rural Development Act in the amount of $100,000 toward infrastructure improvements.
Move to approve.
Discussion. Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, council to consider a request to reorganize the current fire safety department to a fire services department with appropriate staffing changes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
I was gonna second it, but they beat me.
Okay, did you want to add anything with Andy not
You've
here?
got all the information.
Is that by design? Is he not here by design?
He's at a
Yeah,
fire.
He's
Oh, okay.
actually at a fire meeting
Good.
that he needs
Good.
to be at.
Yes, he does.
It's my understanding that Andy had a meeting with the fire chiefs this past week. When was it? Last week? Thursday? And there were some questions about it from folks, and that he answered that. And,
He did, yes, ma'am.
you know, heard good things back from the fire chiefs.
If he could touch base, I'm sure we may have all gotten firemen fire chief phone calls, but if he could just touch base to reinform or explain or whatever.
Yes, sir, we'll keep everyone in the loop.
Okay. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, council to consider approval of the 2017 York County Council meetings calendar.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, consider approval of nominated applicants for services for boards and commissions. And Honorable Mr. Johnson, you want to take over?
Move to approve Darrell Watts for the Building Board of Appeals, Rob Worley for the Building Board of Appeals, Wendy Michael for the York County Library Board, District 1, and James Darby, the York County Planning Commission, District 4.
Any nominations from the floor? There being none? Question? Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't get a second. Somebody?
I'll say it.
Okay, no nominations from the floor. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, motion on the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Committee reports. Chairman Robert Winkler.
Planning Committee, or the Economic Development Committee, met before the Economic Development Board meeting on the 29th, and we had a presentation on the Bailey Bill, which is a way that municipalities can use some tax incentives to help in historical districts and things. And we found some areas, it's a state ordinance, and we just discussed some areas that our ordinance needs to be looked at and make sure that we're up to date. And so we asked staff to come back with some recommendations on that for our next meeting in December.
Okay, questions for Robert? There being none, this is the part where council members can have new non-agenda comments to make, if anybody so feels the need.
I didn't want-
Oh, Ms. Cox?
I noticed that we're having the liaison meeting with the boards and commissions to implement the new application and talk through that. I think that's a great idea. I appreciate you guys taking the lead on that. One thing that I would like to see us do, and obviously this would be something that council would need to consider, but we spent a lot of time, took, 2 days off, day off of work and our Saturday to do the strategic meeting planning. And I think out of that, we came up with 3 primary goals for the next 2 years on council. And I think now would be an appropriate time to pull in our committees and boards and commissions and let them know what our game plan is. We talk about making sure that we educate them about growth management being a priority and how we see that and having a discussion. And I think that's important that they understand what council has identified our priorities so that they know kind of what we're thinking.
Anybody else? Mr. Williams?
Yeah, I'd just like to welcome our young folks here. We have an audience today. I imagine that y'all just didn't have anything else to do today. You're just out of pure curiosity, no school credit or anything. But we appreciate y'all being here and encourage your future participation, and somebody include you in on a good meeting to come to. But glad to have you anytime.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Mr. Williams.
And I'll just
That needed to
remind
be said.
everyone that Mr. Williams already mentioned there is a historical dedication service going on Saturday at 2 o'clock for the courthouse. You can come out, they're doing a historical marker. There's been some talk on the Masonic Lodge, but I think that's going to be later on the
Yes, sir.
cornerstone. So participating in laying a new cornerstone. But that is something people can come out for, that historical marker. Wednesday is the Christmas parade here in York. And after the parade, there will be a lighting of that Christmas tree inside the courthouse. So everyone's welcome to come out for that as well.
And then after that, there's a local contractors
Yes.
meeting here.
And please let Mr. Williams know when the parade starts and where to meet.
4:30. Got to know what my starting marker is.
Okay, so do we have a motion on executive session?
Move we go into executive session to discuss a personnel matter involving the interim Veterans Affairs Director and to receive legal advice involving condemnation and settlement parameters for Track 16 of Project 03020-006 and a potential claim regarding county-appointed board or commission.
Second. Thank you, sir. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We'll start back in 10 minutes, 5 till. Okay, we have one action item out of executive session. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to authorize an increase up to 25% of current salary for the interim Veteran Affairs Director.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. If we have no further discussions, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.